Welcome to Coffee with Democrats, a sensible platform for progressive conversations. Coffee with Democrats is a grassroots movement dedicated to hearing from Democrats, candidates, legislators, and friends from all political backgrounds who want great conversations. Coffee with Democrats is committed to increase Democrat voter registration and Democrat voter turnout by making voting more exciting and meaningful. And now here's your host of Coffee with Democrats, Kevin Dawson.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. We are on Coffee with Democrats, and welcome to Coffee with Democrats. With us this morning, we have Mitch Jacob. He is a fantastic Democrat candidate that we are really excited to have coming on to Coffee with Democrats to talk about his campaign, and we're going to talk a little bit about himself and his biographical information. And we're totally excited to have him on with us today. And he's running for Oklahoma's House District 20. That's House District 20. And we're so excited. So good morning, Mitch. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Scott. Doing just fine. And how are you?
Doing great.
Great to see you, Mitch.
We were just talking before we did the intro here about the storms. Again, for all the people who were impacted by the storms, we send our hearts out to you. I know that up in Barneston, Oklahoma got hit really hard last night. This is the second time this year that it's been hit. And the video that I saw up there is just absolutely devastating. If there's anything we can do on Coffee with Democrats to send any support up that direction, please let us know. We'll do anything we can to support those people and their recovery efforts up there, because it's just an absolutely devastating tornado for that community up there. And I believe that's just inside of Osage County. And again, our hearts go out to them here in Moore, Oklahoma, just to the north of Norman. We had 100-mile-an-hour straight line winds last night. A lot of people were without electricity, but I think we were spared any loss of life, and damage was minimal. So we're very, very blessed and very grateful. And again, we send our hearts out to anybody who is suffering today as a result of the storms that came through last night. A little bit of housekeeping we need to talk about. For those people who are listening right now, please, please, please go out onto your Twitter account, onto your Facebook account, on your Instagram, onto Tribal, all of those social media accounts. Let those people know that you're watching us and where you are watching us at. We are going to be on YouTube Live @ Coffee with Democrats 7998. If you want to share that link, we're on Facebook. Again, it's just Coffee with Democrats. And then once it comes up, you'll see our icon over on the left-hand side will be glowing. So all you have to do is click on that icon and be able to watch us live on Facebook. And then on Twitter Live, it's @ Coffee with Dems. It's not Coffee with Democrats on Twitter. It's Coffee with Dems, @ Coffee with Dems. Go to that Twitter. And again, it's just like Facebook. Our icon over on the left-hand side will be glowing, and you just click on that, and you'll be able to watch this conversation with Mitch. And we're really excited to have you come on and talk, Mitch, with us today about your campaign and let us, kind of delve into your history and background. So we're really excited to have you come on. So good morning, Mitch.
Good morning. And that was a wonderful introduction. Just once again want to reiterate that I hope that everyone in Barnsdall, I know that we've had one confirmed casualty or fatality from the tornado last night, but if there's anything we can do, just let us know.
Perfect. This is Coffee with Democrats. So we got to talk a little bit about our favorite morning drink, whether that be coffee or a coffee substitute. What's your, for those people who are just joining Coffee with Democrats for the very first time and watching this show, we try to put ourselves in that same position as the old coffee shop or donut shop, where you'd always walk in there and there's that group of people that are they're cussing and discussing and having a real good conversation. And sometimes they'll yell at one another and get really irate with one another. But at the end of the conversation, they get up, they put their arms around one another and say, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. And they always show back up the next day for a conversation and a cup of coffee. And that's what we're doing is we're having a cup of coffee this morning. And so what's your favorite coffee, Mitch?
Well, I guess I'm going to turn it into a very short story. So I didn't start drinking coffee until I was 22, back in 2013. I got my first cubicle job, and the soul-sucking nature required something to get through the day. But I realized that I was gaining weight a little bit faster than I ever had in my life. So I realized I had to make a choice. I could either cut back on the coffee, which, let's be honest, nobody does, or I could get rid of the cream and sugar. So for the past 11 years, much to my wife's horror and dismay, I have been drinking black coffee, including the period of years where she got me into instant coffee, and she watched as I would make it and drink it black. And she still rides me on that today. But right now I'm drinking the Dunkin' Donuts Donut Shop. And it's a nice morning pick-me-up.
And it's got a different flavor to it. I have to grant you that it does. My favorite is Mac Cafe.
Okay.
And that's from years and years of working on the railroad, being on call 24 hours a day, working all hours of day and night. And usually on my way to work or on my way home, I could drive through any McDonald's anywhere in the country where I was at and just get a cup of coffee. Now, different from you, I don't drink it black. I despise the taste of black coffee. So, you know, I as many times as I've tried to force myself to drink black coffee, I could never do it. I throw it away because it just tastes so horrible. I've always got to I ditched the sugar and I ditched the cream, and I went to sugar-free and fat-free sweetener and creamer. So I could never get beyond that. Now I don't do vanilla. So all the flavorings like hazelnut and stuff like that, I could never do that either. It's that old time smell and the old time, my original taste is what I stick to.
Well, so that makes sense. But yesterday, to celebrate a doozy of a final, I'm currently in law school. For those who are curious, I did have a vanilla latte, and you can make fun of me all you want, but I enjoy that after a nice final. So
you know what? It's like, why not treat yourself? You know, you're not dead, right?
Yeah, that's true. And if coffee is my vice these days, I think we're doing something well.
It's either coffee or ice cream. So coffee is probably much healthier. Scott, tell us a little bit about. Scott's got a great story.
Our regular viewers know that my beverage of choice in the morning is coffee that I brew the night before, chill overnight, and have it with some half and half. And that's I started drinking iced coffee year round some years ago. This morning, though, I woke up with a cough that just would not stop. And my husband took my iced coffee away and made me drink hot coffee. And I have no objection to it, but it really threw my routine off.
Well, as long as it helps, that's the big deal. And you're gonna have to pat Wayne on the back for deciding, you know what, you know, there's something that to be said about somebody who loves you enough to say you got to do something about that cough. So
but my coffee, though, I mean, of all things.
Yeah,
I agree. That would be fisticuffs over in this house. I'll tell you right now.
Well, let's talk just a little bit about who Mitch is. So I'm going to spare your voice here for just a little bit. I've got a little write up here about Mitch. So let's meet Mitch. Mitch Jacob is a fourth generation Oklahoma native, loving husband, proud father, son to an incredible mother, one of 9 siblings, a U.S. Army veteran, currently enrolled in law school at the University of Oklahoma College of Law in Norman, Oklahoma. Go Sooners. That's my alma mater. Mitch knows what it means to work hard for one's dreams and is honored to be a voice for Oklahoma. From humble beginnings, Mitch has worked hard to achieve success. Mitch has earned 2 associate degrees, 1 bachelor's degree, is enrolled in the University of Oklahoma College of Law, has experience as a mortgage loan originator, banker, and licensed series 7//63 registered representative, and was honorably discharged from the U.S. Army, earning the rank of Sergeant E5. Mitch, your wife's name has eluded me, and I've tried as hard as I can to make sure I get it right. I'm not even going to try it. Please apologize to her, but tell us the pronunciation.
It's Rocio. So Rocio, Rocio, means morning dewdrop, in case that helps at
Good.
all.
Awesome. So Rocio and their children currently reside in Newcastle, Oklahoma, where they attend Victory Family Church. Mitchell Jacob is honored by the opportunity to represent Oklahoma's House District 20. And he's also honored by the opportunity to be a voice for District 20 in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. So again, we are going to ask for everybody to support Mitch, and also contribute in both volunteer, your time, and your resources, whether it be financial, to help us get Mitchell into the House of Representatives and stem some of this radicalism that we're seeing coming out of the Republican Party. So again, thanks for coming on Coffee with Democrats, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, your busy day, especially this time of the year where you're doing finals. You're I don't know how you're doing it. It seems overwhelming to me to even think back to what I was doing when I was in my bachelor's or master's programs. You've got you got your work cut out for you. So thanks for coming on and spending time with us.
Thank you, Kevin. And I just want to make a point based on something you said. I find it really interesting. I don't think I have how do I want to say this? A super progressive or super liberal or even a super well put together campaign in a lot of ways. I just think that I believe in common sense and not harming the people you're supposed to represent. And somehow that has turned into a campaign platform.
Right.
And I think that says a lot about where we find ourselves these days.
Oh, and we're going to talk a lot about that in our time with you, because again, the radicalism that we're seeing coming from the Republican Party, it doesn't even resemble the Republican Party of 5 years, or 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I'll make an admission. I've said this before, and I'll admit to it again. I voted for John McCain back in 2008. I will also say, big mistake, huge mistake, because I've learned very quickly how wonderful President Obama was.
Yes,
and
yes.
How great of a person in his administration, how wonderful they treated people and brought respect to back after some of the dumpster fires that we were seeing out of President Bush. But at the same time, President Bush was not a horrible administration. It was that natural Republican versus Democrat. It's the differences. What did they say, Scott? The differences weren't as radical as they are today. So
Absolutely. And I mean, I'll tell you something. What's interesting, though, is for us to now be able to say that the Bush administration was not all that bad. It's because of what we went through with 4 years with Trump, and we've seen what bad can be. And I agree with you. I think that things have become so polarized. And Mitch, I was particularly struck by you saying that you didn't have a well-organized campaign, because your platform is exactly what Oklahoma needs. When we look at what's happening or not happening at the Capitol, when we see elected officials who make it their mission every day to totally disregard the needs of Oklahomans.
Right.
So something is not working. And for you to be able to say, wait a minute, I'm not a radical here. I just think that we've got to figure out a way to work together. for the good of the people. And it's one thing to say it, but I know how frustrated some of our elected Dems are that that our legislature has not really taken an upper hand to Ryan Walters. They've been pushing, but there just are not enough Democratic voices in our legislature.
Well, and I think, Scott, that's interesting too, because I don't believe that Ryan Walters should be a party issue. Anyone who runs for state superintendent of education and then uses that position to try to systematically dismantle the public school system in the state where they are in charge of that public school system, that's just a crisis of conscience, of morality, and using a position in a way that it never should be used. So I will say, I know we're going to get into all of this and into specific policies and topics, but there are really two reasons that I chose to run. The first one is simply education. We're going to get into that in much greater depth in a moment, so I won't hit that one right now. But the second one is at the end of last year, I was sitting with my wife in the kitchen, and we were just talking about this year, 2024, and who we might be interested in voting for, and some of the positions that were coming open. And I realized that for another cycle, as it was at the time, the Senate district that I live in and the House district that I live in were going to be decided in a Republican primary. So anyone who is registered as a Democrat, Independent, or Libertarian would not get a vote at all. They would never show up on the ballot for those who are registered under those parties. And I remember just sitting there complaining to my wife about why it can work out that way in a democracy where only one party gets to keep picking the candidate. And then I said, obviously, there's an answer here. I just have to run, and then everybody can have a voice and choose who they want to vote for in that. If that turns out to be the Republican who wins the primary, that is fine. But everyone deserves a choice and a voice in every election. And that is one of the two primary factors that drove me to this decision. The other one just being, we have 5 kids. They all go to public school. And I just could not sit by anymore and watch what we're doing to the school system that takes care of them every day, starving it of resources, taking away the teachers, being happy when teachers quit or are fired. And I decided to try to make a difference.
Yes, there you got it, folks. There you heard it firsthand. How amazing is that that we've got a candidate that gets it from the very beginning. And that's why I get so excited about coming on Coffee with Democrats to hear somebody like Mitch that just threw it down right there. Why support somebody who is going to dismantle the program? Why be part of or why sit out and allow somebody else to put their party people in place when we could be part of the solution? How great is that it's just that simple, and yet it's not just that simple. It's an amazing contrast of personalities, and that's why it's so important for people to get behind Mitch. It's a great story, and this is why I get so excited about coming on Coffee with Democrats. I feel like now I'm down in the coffee shop and I'm getting ready to start throwing salt at my neighbor and saying, come on, let's get up here. Let's talk about this a little bit, because we can't let this go to the side. And another thing we got to talk about, and I'm going to go on just a little bitty rant. Let's vote, people. Let's vote. Yes. Let's don't sit it out. When we don't vote, we let somebody else do it for us. So come on, let's get off our butts, go to the polling station, register to vote, register as a Democrat, and vote as a Democrat, and elect Democrats. So Ron, let's do that. That's so easy. So thanks so much. I mean, golly, I got so excited listening to you right there. I'm ready to jump up and down and start doing everything I can to help your campaign.
Well, you're right on that, Kevin, that we absolutely need more people to vote. So shameless plug, sorry, but mitchelljacob.com. Under resources, the very top item you will find is register to vote. I clicked through all the links for you. So if you're just trying to register to vote in Oklahoma, you can now do it online and you can do it right there from the website. And I made it as easy as I possibly can.
Again,
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
You're a
You
candidate's candidate.
I'm me. You mentioned you when Kevin said that you were one of 9 children, and then you just told us that you have 5 children.
Yes, sir.
That's a big family.
It sure is.
And I'm wondering when the light bulb went off for you, what was your wife's reaction?
That's actually not the way I'm going to answer the question, because when the light bulb went off for me, I suppose I'll say it this way. My wife supports me 100%, so that's never been an issue. But the very first thing we actually did that night is we actually just brought the kids in and we sat them down at the kitchen table and we explained what my plan was, what that would mean, right? Because not all my children have been through 8th grade civics class. Not all of them understand yet from an academic perspective the way the government works. So we had an educational sit down and we explained how government works, how elected officials work, and we asked the kids and we let the children decide whether or not, right? Because this is a family. I'm not an individual operating on my own, and it affects them, right? So I've done speeches at one of my children's school, multiple speeches. Now I did a debate over there. So the superintendent knows them. Parents know us now. I know that some of the kids in my one of my children's Bible study, they talked to him about my campaign. And we knew that that would get more and more as we got closer to the election. So my wife was immediately on board, and it was the children we sat down, asked if they would be comfortable with it. And when they all came back to us and ultimately said yes, that's when we truly committed to it.
I'm gonna tell you something. Anyone who treats their own children that way cares about other people's kids too. And I'm just I'm like Kevin. I'm just so excited about your candidacy and your plain spokenness. You're not trying to dazzle anyone, but and yet your concepts are so simple that they become dazzling. Because those are things we don't hear enough candidates talk about. So this is a big commitment on the part of your family. It's a requirement of your time, your finances, so it's a sacrifice. And I just want to say thank you for making that sacrifice, because you have all of the leadership abilities and experience that one could hope for. I mean, a veteran, very well educated, both feet firmly on the ground, with a vision for the future. I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
Well, thanks, Scott.
So
Appreciate that.
here's where we need to change direction just a little bit, because
Yes, sir.
we're building you up. We're building this up. We've talked about, all right, we're running for the House of Representatives, House District 20. All right. The first thing you do is you have a rollout campaign party. And what is your speech to the people who are interested in your party and into your candidacy? What is your best prepared candidate speech? What does that sound like? And how does that resonate to why voters should vote for you?
Well, District 20 is an interesting place. As anyone who lives here knows, we are nestled right up against Oklahoma City to the north, and then right up against Norman. So the largest city in Oklahoma to the north, and directly to our east is the third largest city in Oklahoma. And yet we're extremely rural in that strip that we take. So we get an opportunity to drive into downtown Bricktown, see Norman, while my neighbors have cattle on their property. So that puts us in a very unique and interesting place. And there are 5 things that I believe in very, very, very strongly for Oklahoma and for this district. Number 1, I believe in inclusion for everyone. So I have on my campaign Facebook and others just a short message that says regardless of your race, ethnicity, gender, identity, who you love, your politics, your religion. I love you. I really do. I welcome you to Oklahoma. I think this could be a wonderful home for you, for me, and for all of us if we would just learn to live and let live. Next, I believe 100% in education. We're going to go into those policies specifically here on this. So I will save those for just a moment. The next is infrastructure. We need more. The ability to travel, to get around, to have access to a market for your goods and to a chamber of commerce that can help you develop your business, and a library that can educate you on the topics that you need to know are so crucial and important. And my district specifically has a turnpike extension going through it, which, to say it bluntly, is not a favored policy, and is not very popular within the district for a lot of reasons, and they're very good reasons. The next thing, I collapsed this one into two, but as far as infrastructure and education go, children should be getting Chromebooks in 2024. They should not be getting textbooks to lug around, have the dog eat, lose, be heavier than they are when it's in their backpack, things like that. Next, I believe, this number 4 out of 5, small business. We can do a lot better. I have that in here as well. So I have some very specific policies I think will help. But in a rural area specifically that has a wonderful technical school, we should be encouraging these graduates and these students to start their automotive shop and create that plumbing business and become electricians and serve this community while making a living for themselves, build jobs, build the economy, and build the district. And finally, is jobs. I have a whole link and a whole proposal that I'll throw in the chat when we get to it on how we can fix the corporate code in Oklahoma, build new jobs, and just become a more economically diverse state.
What a wonderful, wonderful opening speech. And you've covered everything that a person and a candidate needs to be talking about. First of all, starting off with love. And that to me, that resonates, because we have to start loving one another. We have to love our neighbors. And that is just, to me, that's one of the hardest things, that we have one side that doesn't want to love us for who we are. They want to shape us and control us. And this is one of my favorite statements that I make all the time with Coffee with Democrats. The Republican Party wants to control the will of the people, where the Democratic Party wants to do the will of the people. And what you just talked about is just doing the will of the people. And that is just such an awesome, awesome statement. So I'm going to turn it over a little bit to Scott here to talk about some of the things that, like your opponent and education, things like that. And then I'll come back in with healthcare and jobs.
Yeah, I'm interested in what your thinking is regarding education, Mitch, ways that we can improve. And I'm not talking just at the state level. Obviously, there's a major change that needs to happen there. But what are some of your thoughts on education in Oklahoma? How can we do it better? How can we do it more effectively? How can we retain good teachers? What are your hopes in terms of educating our children?
If only that weren't such a complicated question, Scott. I feel like that should be so simple. How do we educate our children? That should not be a politicized topic. So I guess my very first answer, and I hope it doesn't sound flippant, but we need to give education back to educators. There's so much meddling in policies and bills and what teachers may or may not do in their own classrooms. For example, the person who currently holds my seat introduced and got passed Senate Bill 3958 this session, which says that if a teacher wants to send an email to a student in their class, they now must include the parent on every email. That's fine as a general point, but that's just one example of extreme micromanaging of teachers that makes their job so difficult. If you just want to send an email, now you have to look at a list of regulations and laws to know to whom this email must go, who it cannot go, And that doesn't even get into how they teach and what they can teach and the materials they can have in their classroom. So my first simple answer is we just need to give education back to educators. Superintendents know what their districts need. Let them run their districts and empower them with staff, funding, resources, and let them educate the children. We do not need some group of legislators, most of us who have never taught in a classroom, telling teachers how they need to do their job. But beyond that, as far as the education system itself is concerned, because I have a list of the current teacher crisis, and we can go into that in one moment. But as a more general, my first issue and one of the things that got me fired up last year was the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act. So not everyone who watches this show lives in Oklahoma. So just as a very brief introduction to it, it calls itself a tax credit, excuse me, but it's more of a voucher system. Long story short, there is no income cap in order to receive this, but basically the state will take a check that was intended for the local school district where you live and send it to a private school of your choice. The maximum that you can receive is $7,500 per academic year, and the minimum is $5,000. As a fun fact, 65% of the households that qualified for it this year make over $150,000 per household. They can afford a private education on their own. They do not need that $250 million that is being taken from local schools and being sent to private schools. So I do not support the use of public funds for private education, and I believe that we need to repeal the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act, keep resources with schools, and stop dismantling them. The next point, I said it earlier, we need to issue Chromebooks, not textbooks. This has so many benefits, but I remember in 8th grade, I was reading my civics textbook, excuse me, and I remember that it had the wrong president, it had wrong governors, it had laws that had been repealed. It just had so much inaccurate information, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I was still able to learn about civics and how it works, but the examples were all wrong. And in a Chromebook, we can update that every summer. Push out an update. Every textbook gets the most recent information. You can carry that around. An 8-year-old child carrying 3 textbooks, that weighs as much as them. But a Chromebook, maybe 1 or 2 pounds, and they can carry that around. But the other reason that I am such a strong advocate for Chromebooks goes beyond just that ability to learn. That means that for some households, that might be the only laptop. We can encourage telehealth for families that get a Chromebook from the school district. We can encourage the ability for children to learn asynchronously. So if you have a child with learning disabilities, then we don't have to force them to go into a classroom where they're unfamiliar. They can learn from their own home with their own caregivers in their own comfort while learning. And that's the beauty of 2024 and a connected society. As an additional matter, there are so many policies I feel like we could pick out, but I must say that I strongly and vehemently oppose Senate Bill 36, that recently shucked bill. I forget even what the original introduction was for, but the bill as amended will allow clerics and other religious ministers to be employed at schools instead of school counselors. And they do not need the same degrees or certifications as counselors do. They have lowered all of those standards, and you only have to be a religious minister, however that is defined, because it is not defined in the bill. And you will be able to work in a school to counsel children. I don't know about you, but I'm just going to tell you right now, if you're sitting down in a room with a closed door with my child, and I have not specifically given you permission to do that, then you better be qualified in the field that you're there to provide them, be that as a doctor, as a counselor, or something else. Just because you went through seminary or something like that does not, in my opinion, give you the right to sit down and explain to my child how life is treating them and make sure they're okay. I will go to my pastor if that's the route that I want to take. And that should not be at the school level.
And
you're absolutely right in saying what you did. The bill itself does not prescribe what a chaplain is.
Chaplain, thank you.
It does not require a seminary degree. It does not, I mean, all it requires is you to say, hi, I'm a chaplain. I'm here for the job. And this is something that Kevin and I have talked about often, is the absolute inherent dangers in something like this. Um, when you have an unqualified person behind closed doors with a child, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, everything could go wrong with that. And we've got, we've got this radical extremist Ryan Walters, who in every conversation, everything he puts out is the woke mob doing this and the indoctrination that, and it just, to me, it's just using those words instead of expletives that and calling people names. But the fact is, every action by this guy is directing indoctrination onto our children and opening that indoctrination to include both sexual and physical abuse. And it's something that is so abhorrent that we should not even be having this conversation. But he is the one who's, in my opinion, personally responsible. He has to be held accountable. And the sooner we get this guy out of our lives entirely in Oklahoma, the better off Oklahoma will be. His form of radicalism is a disease. And
I just want to provide a little bit of context, if I may, there.
Please.
So, for example, I'm still blown away by this. But if you don't live in Oklahoma, one thing you may not know, well, you may not know the name Ryan Walters. He's our state superintendent of education. But as one example of the radicalism that we're talking about here, Chaya Raichik, otherwise known as Libs of TikTok, that prolific person who attacks trans, LGBTQIA+, things of that nature, was recently appointed by Ryan Walters to be on the Library Advisory Committee for the state of Oklahoma to determine which books children in Oklahoma should have the right to read in their school libraries. This person is not an educator. They are not trained for this particular position. They just have a political platform with which Ryan Walters agrees, and she is now able to push that agenda in Oklahoma in a state-sponsored capacity. And that is just one small example of what we need to combat.
And I'm trying to find it, but if not only is she not even qualified, to my knowledge, she's not even a parent.
It just gets better every time you learn more about Chaya Raichik.
She just did nothing but a big mouth
And a bigot. We
Yes.
can call it out as it is.
Oh yeah, please, yeah. You got to call it what it is, and you're exactly right. Yeah, a bigot that is the voice box of our state superintendent of public education. So yeah, we've our education is a disaster in Oklahoma. Depending on the poll that you look at, Oklahoma ranks in the bottom 5, and in some polls we are absolutely dead last in Oklahoma. And that's one of the things that we've got to figure out an immediate remedy for that. And that starts with what you were talking about. That's funding our schools, also increasing the pay of our teachers. And that means if we pay our teachers a living wage, something that they can proliferate with and become better at, that means our education is going to draw the better educators out of from within the state of Oklahoma and outside the state of Oklahoma to come in and be better educators for the students that we have. Because what's the central tenet of public education? It's having children who can leave the public school system and become productive adults. We've got a good system that's already out there in place, but we can make that so much better. And it goes back to what you say, have pathways for people who don't want to go to college and become doctors and lawyers and engineers and things of that nature, but give them that pathway to become the person that they want, whether that's working on automobiles or whether it's working on plumbing or whether it's electrical or, you know, any of the trades that are out there. And give them that the idea that their life matters. That's another thing that I think that our superintendent forgets, is he's playing with these kids and these kids are killing themselves. And that's such a sad testimony that we have such a high suicide rate in the state of Oklahoma. Again, I'm going to call it for the way I see it is, he is the one responsible for their deaths. And it's something that we've got to immediately have a pathway to fix.
And I just would like to throw this in there. On Sunday night, I had the distinct pleasure, and it really was a pleasure, to walk in the Norman Pride Parade.
Yeah.
And what an incredible experience that was. So if you're listening to this and you're struggling, then two things I want to say to you right now. One, I am an ally. You can reach out to me and I will happily have a conversation with you, let you know that your story is not written, and I want to see the rest of the chapters that your life will write. In addition to that, on my website, under resources, the second thing you will find is the semicolon. You can get a crisis counselor right there. It will do text, email, phone call, whatever you need for your life. Make sure that it keeps going. Let me help. You deserve to be here. You are so wonderful and loved. And maybe I haven't met you yet, but that's my loss. And I look forward to the day that I do get to meet you.
How powerful is that, Scott? I mean, that it just keeps getting
Sitting
better.
here literally with tears in my eyes, thinking what it would have been like when I was 15 or 16 and I had someone like you in my corner that just said, "Hey, I'm here." That's remarkable.
It really is. It really is. So it brings us to the next topic that we're going to talk about. I'm going to spare you just a little bit here, Scott. Let's talk a little bit about healthcare. Oklahoma has got a healthcare crisis. We're in the same place we were when I moved here in the late 1980s. Through the early 1990s, we had a nursing crisis, and they couldn't get enough nurses. But in the state of Oklahoma now, we have a crisis not because there's not people who can't get there or the system. It's that they're under attack because of policies by the Republican Party for, you know, trying to provide health care to certain groups in that now they're leaving the state of Oklahoma. You can't find, we're going to have OBGYN deserts in Oklahoma because of the attacks on that profession. We're going to have a birthing crisis where people can't get IVF because of, again, the attacks by the radicals. So talk to us a little bit about your, what you see as the way to handle healthcare and be able to handle this healthcare crisis.
So this gets broken up into multiple categories because it's too big to just call healthcare. So we'll start with healthcare as a general point. So I, Mitchell Jacob, just want to make this perfectly clear, believe that basic life-saving healthcare is a human right.
Exactly.
I do not think that it is required that you have to have insurance or someone to pay in order to just survive. If you need more than that, let's have a conversation. But as a general matter to start with, it's a human right. What does that mean? Well, I don't think that you need a billionaire standing between you and your doctor, telling you which procedures they're going to approve and telling the doctor which procedures they'll pay for, because those can be separate. So what do I believe? I believe that we need a single payer healthcare system to liberate Americans. I think it will do three things. It will empower them to finally seek care, to stop putting off those appointments because of their copay, their deductible, the expense, whatever it may be. And I'm sorry to do this to you, mother, but my mother just put off an MRI the other day because of the incredible copay that came with it. Yeah, anyway, the next thing it will do is help to eliminate medical debt. The fact that you can go to the ER and then be saddled with debt that impedes your ability to buy a car, buy a home, to get rent, but you cannot declare bankruptcy and discharge it, that is a problem. And that is a system that we have intentionally designed, and we can fix it. And the third thing that a single payer system will do, and this is the biggest one for me, even though you being healthy is very important to me, it will free you from relying upon your employer and thus being stuck in a job you hate simply so that you can receive health care. And more commonly, where I see this is parents who have a child who needs to be insured, and thus they stay at that job for 10 or 15 years and deal with the verbal abuse or the terrible hours or the terrible pay just so that they don't go bankrupt whenever their child needs to go for their next surgery or their next appointment. Those three things will be solved through a single payer healthcare system and kicking billionaires out as the middlemen between you and your doctor.
Oh man, I tell you what, Scott, we got a tiger by the tail right here, because this guy is just sharp as a tack, and I'm 100% on board. We've got to break this down into one more topic, because in healthcare, because this one here again, we are on the precipice of having women's rights completely eliminated, and women being relegated as second-class citizens because of their reproductive systems. And we're regulating the women's reproductive systems, but we have no regulation on men whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
So talk to us about, your feeling about how to preserve women's rights and bodily autonomy, and how to improve upon their freedoms and liberties.
Well, first, let's step back and look at it this way. 20 years ago, I was extraordinarily proud of this country and the 100-year effort of the suffrage movement, of the civil rights movement, of the, you call it the bodily autonomy movement, I suppose. Women received the right to vote and the right to regulate their own bodies. And in a matter of years, we were able to cut so much of that out in very rapid succession. So here is my stance on bodily autonomy, and it is very simple, very, very simple. Kevin, no one is going to tell me what I may or may not do with my body. And similarly, I do not believe that anyone has the right to tell you what you may or may not do with your body. This applies to men, to women, to all of my LGBTQIA plus friends. It applies to their children, to their grandparents. It applies to everyone. It is your body. It is your right. It is your choice. I don't have to agree with it, but that does not mean that I get to interfere with it.
Absolutely. I've said this before. I had an uncle, highly decorated during World War II in the Navy, has several battle stars. After World War II, he was relegated because of his sexual preference to having to live as a what they call confirmed bachelor, and could not be in association with family anymore. Those days are not only are those gone, but they should never have been in place to begin with. Even in a strict Christian society, we should always be looking at a way to love our neighbor, and to love our neighbor the way that we love ourselves. And that goes to women as well. We should never be trying to strip and relegate them to become second-class citizens and not have the right to be who they want to be. And that means if a person who finds themselves in a bad situation, which I'm going to tell you straight up, I have no statistics to back this up, but from life's experiences, men push themselves on women and push women into situations they don't want to be in. So many times that's been the my experience. We've seen that happen over and over again. We can call it rape. We can call it date rape. We can call it, call it what it is, coercion. We see that all the time. And it's those one night stands, things that, other derogatory terms that you would have used for that. And you're just using somebody for, a moments of pleasure. And then that person is saddled with your coercion for the rest of their life. Then you have no responsibility as a man. And I think there's been some changes trying to make sure that men are held accountable. But again, men are only held accountable if there is a trusted system in place. And you can't trust people who are willing to lie and to deny. So that in itself, we can't put women in that position where they have to, either by choice or by force, have to be resolved with somebody else's decision for them. And that I really believe that women should have full autonomy with no restriction up until a certain time. We're not talking about after birth, abortions. That is bullshit. I'm going to call it for what it is. It doesn't happen, folks. If the child is born and then is killed, that's murder. That's not abortion. Abortion happens before the child takes a breath inside the woman. There should be no restriction to that. So I've got personal feelings, but I don't want to inject my personal feelings on anybody else. So
so we're talking about healthcare and bodily autonomy, but two things. One directly to this, one expands beyond it. First, I want to expand. So we're talking about the rights of women and people and things of that nature. So not only have we criminalized abortion in Oklahoma, and we're trying to take away the right of women to have bodily autonomy, but beyond that, to your point, there was a bill introduced to get rid of the no-fault divorce. So that you must prove infidelity, you must prove, oh man, I don't remember what the exceptions are anymore, but you must prove something to get a divorce. In addition, if you look at how widespread our abuse of women is in Oklahoma, it's really telling that Quick Trip, one of the largest gas chains in Oklahoma, is a safe place where women can go if they're being battered, abused, or chased. And that's just commonplace. Now, I'm glad that they do it. Don't mistake why I'm bringing that up, but it just does make me sad every time I go and I see those big signs everywhere that say that it's a safe place, because we need a safe place for them to go. We can do so much better, and we must do better. But even beyond that, people like to talk about when abortion should be cut off. And here's the way I will phrase it. And I also believe this one. If you want to have a conversation with me about when we should start cutting off abortions, and I agree with you that if the baby is born and we kill it, that is just simply murder. But if you want to talk to me about that, then I need to see that pro-life means something. I need to see funding for child protective services, adoption services, for foster care, for elder services. I want to see universal free lunch and breakfast for school-age children. I want to see that we are taking care of life at every single stage before you can get me to agree with forcing women to have babies because of whatever belief system it is that you ascribe to. Only after those are done will I personally engage in that conversation.
That's spectacular, because we to be called a pro-life politician, a pro-life state, that's simply not true in Oklahoma. It's pro-birth, and then to hell with the kid, and to hell with the mother. But what you're saying makes perfect sense. You mentioned the attempt to make people unable to get a no-fault divorce. We know that right now there are 7 states, and I'm sure that this will be coming up in Oklahoma next year, but there are 7 states that prevent a divorce if the woman is pregnant. Now, that's horrifying to me because when a woman tries to leave an abusive partner, it increases violence 75%.
Right. Right.
And now we're saying, no, you got to stay. So if something like that came up on the floor of the House next year, how would you respond to the author of that bill?
Hopefully, I'd get a little bit more time to think about it. But I suppose the very first thing I would do is ask them if this is the Oklahoma they want their daughters to be raised in.
Thank
If
you.
they want their daughters to be stuck in a marriage that they are abused in or stuck in or can never get out of because all he's doing is laying hands on me, he's not cheating on me, uh, then they're creating an Oklahoma that I simply cannot get behind. But if I suppose that's where I would start with just a moment to think about that.
You know,
Thank you. That's perfect response.
it is. It absolutely is. And it falls back in line with since 1996, Oklahoma has ranked in the top 10 worst states for women murdered by men and single victim and single offender incidents. And this year, Oklahoma ranks the very worst state for women domestic violence in relationships, whether it be abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, any of the 5 categories. So absolutely worst state when it comes to women's rights. When it comes,
Did you know, you talk about stalking? I personal experience a few weeks ago, we found something really fascinating out about our system in Oklahoma, and totally forgot about it until you mentioned stalking. And what a fascinating choice we've made. So, in order to get a victim protective order in Oklahoma, which is what we call wow, sorry, just blanked. But you have to stay away from me. Restraining order, excuse me, victim
Restraining order, yeah.
protective order, VPO. You have to be in a relationship with that person, like married to them. So if it's just a creepy guy in your high school class who's stalking you, no VPOs at your college campus, at your work. And if you're just boyfriend and girlfriend, you cannot get a VPO. And that can only be part of the problem that we're experiencing. If the only people that you can keep away from you are the ones who you've gone through the choice to become married to them, but then you can get a VPO against them, but we're going to take away your ability to divorce them. So explain to me how that's supposed to work out. It's a wildly two-tiered system that we're creating that I simply do not understand.
And I agree with you on that. Completely understand. And it is something that we've got to address, because again, it was our legislature who has established those laws to be put in place. And again, are we going to be the handmaid's tale state of the United States? We need to close down this conversation. We're getting close to our hour, and we've just got a couple of minutes for us to close this down. You've been a great guest. We've got to do this again, Mitch. We're just touching the tip of the iceberg. We've got to get you back on here. We've got to talk more detail. But between now and then, I want to share something with everybody. You've got to be able to see this to know where to go. For people who are watching, please go to Mitchell's website, and his website is mitchelljacob.com. Within that, he has got a place. It's his Act Blue account, and so please go to that Act Blue account on his website and support Mitch in his campaign. We'd always talk about this. We need financial support. We also need volunteers, people who are willing to go to House District 20 and be able to take Mitchell around, volunteer their time, make phone calls, send text messages, go door to door, But we also need that financial support, and here's a way to do that. And please contribute to Mitchell Jacobs campaign. And you don't have to start at $1,000 or to even $25. There's a blank space right here where you can put in, the $1 or, $5 option, whatever you want. You can make it recurring or not recurring. And then you just go to checkout with your credit card or your debit card, whatever you have. And then there's also the option there for, Google Play. There's probably an option for Apple Play or Apple Pay. So whatever means that you want to pay and contribute, we need for you to contribute. This is a great candidate. You heard me say it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. Mitch is a candidate's candidate. He's ready to go. Not only has he got all of the education that he's also got a history, and he's got a life's history that is very telling and is going to be very instrumental in helping him make decisions for the people within House District 20. So, Mitch, thanks for coming on Coffee with Democrats. Scott, I need to turn it over to you for just a couple of minutes, but it's been great to talk to you, Mitch.
Mitch, it really has been. This has been a really refreshing conversation. You're coming from a different perspective. You're coming with new ideas. You're coming with a firm understanding of the landscape in Oklahoma. You clearly know what your neighbors need, what they are asking for in terms of support from a representative. And I just think that you are an incredible candidate. So I wish you all the best. And like Kevin said, we need you back on again soon because you've got so much knowledge, and I'm just thrilled with your candidacy and wish you nothing but the best.
Well, I thank you both. One last thing I'll say on here, to anyone who's watched and is thinking about whether or not you would like, whether or not I need your help, I suppose is the way I'll say it. I don't have a staff. I don't have a campaign manager. I don't have a consultant. My website I built myself. Social media is all done by myself. Everything I do, and I could use your help however you want to do that. And I just want you to know that whatever you contribute to the campaign is just going to the campaign. It's not going to a consultant. It's not going to some firm in DC or New York or even Oklahoma City, because I am choosing, for better or worse, to do it all myself. And we just did a round of fundraising. Was able to raise about $3,000 to buy signs. So we have yard signs and highway signs and things of that nature. And the next round of fundraising is going to be going toward mailing campaigns and getting information out to the rural district, right? I have 40,000 people, and it takes an hour to drive across from my house to the other side. So I'm just trying to find ways to reach out to as many people as possible. And I do need your help to do that, because I can only knock on one door at a time. But with your help, I can mail hundreds or thousands of people at any given time. Thank you so much.
Well, you've been a great inspiration to us. And I'm just thrilled to death to have you on Coffee with Democrats today. And again, thank you for taking the time to be with us. We are not going to have a Coffee with Democrats next week. I am taking some time off to go with my lovely bride of 41 years. We are going to Colorado on vacation. So
congratulations. That's wonderful.
Thank you. We are taking some time off. And so we're going to miss our conversation with Scott next week, but it's for a great cause. And I think he understands very much why we're not going to be here next week. So again, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. And until then, everybody, please be safe. Thank you so much for joining. This segment of Coffee with Democrats is brought to you by Steve Holcomb, Attorney at Law. With family ties, to Oklahoma in the legal field that goes back as far as the early 1900s, Steve Holcomb is a well-known and respected attorney at law in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. You can trust Steve Holcomb, attorney at law, with your legal needs. For generations encompassing over 100 years, the Holcomb family name has practiced law and served the cattlemen of Oklahoma. From Marion Holcomb, Steve's great-grandfather, who became a judge among the lands of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes in southwest Oklahoma in the early 1900s, who then moved to Pawhuska to practice law, to his grandfather, Thad Holcomb Sr., and his father, Lee Holcomb, who both served as presidents of the Osage County Cattlemen's Association. The Holcomb name has been and still is the trusted name for Oklahomans. As an enthusiastic supporter of Coffee with Democrats who promotes the Oklahoma standard of service, honor, and kindness, Steve Holcomb is the attorney we recommend going to when you have general practice legal needs. Call 918-287-8762. That's 918-287-8762 to schedule a consultation. Initial consultations may be provided free of charge, or go to holcomb.legal for more information.